What are the three major mistakes that everyone does that brings them into burnout and keeps them going back into burnout again and again? What are the things that every human being is doing that prevents them from actually living a life with energy and good health and to avoid burnout? I'm a performance coach, and there are three major habits that I install in my clients in order to help them to overcome burnout forever. Yeah, sure. We live in a society with so many stressors, and it's easy to put the blame on society. There's so much food that is stressing us, there's so much work, there's all the screen time, like there's so much information, and it becomes information overload. And this is the reason why we burn out. Yeah, it's easy to put the blame at the external stuff, but really, the real reason why you burn out, it's all internal and it has everything to do with you being human. So, what is it really that prevents you from living a life with energy and good health? And what is it really that prevents you from avoiding burnout? Well, let me tell you. The number one reason that brings you back into burnout is that you probably have low self esteem on some level. Well, all humans actually do. And how come? Why is it that so many people have low self esteem? And what is really self esteem? Well, it is how you value yourself. Do you think of yourself as valuable, as enough, as good enough? Or do you have that constant feeling that you are less valuable than other people? Well, if it's the latter, if you think that you're a little bit less valuable than everyone else, welcome to the club. We're all human. And unless you've done some work on building your self esteem, you'll probably be in that category where you feel that you're not good enough. We all feel like we're not good enough on some level. And how come? Why is that? Well, you need to understand that your brain has one major task. Its main job is to keep you safe. And how does it keep you safe? Well, in order to understand that, you need to rewind a couple of million of years and look at how life was when your ancestors were hunters and gatherers living in the bush, living on the savannah. They were 100% dependent on their society in order to survive. There were so many dangers, and your brain has the same programming it had 2 million years ago. It knows that the most dangerous thing is if you lose the connection to your society. If you're suddenly not part of your tribe, then wow, you're going to be in great danger. Your brain knows that, and your brain goes, okay, how can I make sure that you're actually safe, that you have a slot in your tribe, that you're welcomed within your tribe? And the brain goes, well, if you're valuable, then you'll be accepted, right? This is all unconscious stuff happening inside of you all the time in all humans. So your brain thinks, okay, you need to be valuable in order to have your slot in the tribe secured. And what does it mean being valuable? Well, we are of course influenced by the culture we live in, the Western society. And really, what do we look upon as values in our Western society? Well, it is a good-looking body, good looks, perfect career, achievements, productivity, a beautiful house, beautiful family, etc., etc., right? So it all comes to being perfect, producing more, performing, performing, performing. And this is what you unconsciously think of as value. So we humans, we end up putting our value in external stuff outside of ourselves. Well, that isn't really true. Like, I just want to ask you now, do you value yourself? Do you think that you are enough just based on who you are, just being you? Or do you feel that you need to achieve stuff, produce stuff, get all that positive feedback, be someone, have certain social status in order to be valuable? So I've been on that side for so many years. I had all my values attached to all that outer stuff. And when we feel like we're less valuable than everyone else, your brain will be like, your brain will be so afraid that you will die because it knows that the most dangerous thing is if you lose that connection to your tribe, right? So it is desperate. This is This is a survival game. So if you feel less valuable, you will be driven to produce more, to be more perfect, and all that stuff. And what does this have to do with burnout? Well, obviously, I guess you understand this already. If you never find value on the inside, if you never feel like you are enough just because you are you, and trust me, you are enough. If you're not feeling it yet, you will constantly be driven to performing better, being more perfect, producing more, because your brain will be so afraid. Literally thinks that you will die if you don't do that stuff. So maybe you've been burned out. Maybe you're on the verge of getting burned out. Maybe you've seen people around you being burned out. And what I experience with my clients is that they get burned out, they take time off work to recover, they go back into work, and guess what? Nothing has changed. The patterns are still the same. The habits are still the same. They still put all their value in the external stuff, which means they need to produce more and do more and say yes to more and just please other people, right? This is where people pleasing comes from. If you don't guard your own time and energy and you instead say yes to everyone else, whenever people ask you to do something, you say yes. And we do that if we have low self-esteem. We end up policing people because your brain thinks that you'll die. If you say no because your brain is so afraid that people won't like you, right? And what happens if people don't like you? Oh, you're suddenly left out and you're alone. And this is the most dangerous thing. So it all comes down to low self-esteem. So in order to actually change this, you need to build your self-esteem. It is the most crucial, the most important thing you do. It's nothing you can do overnight. It's not a quick fix. It's not a quick fix. It's a process, and hopefully that process starts today. Because if it doesn't, you will still continue putting too much in on your plate, filling up your to-do list, saying yes to everyone, thinking that you need to do more all the stuff in order to be perfect, in order for your kids to be perfect, your house to be perfect, your body to be perfect, your career to be perfect. You need to produce more, get all the feedback. And this is a never-ending chase for all that external validation because you don't have it on the inside. So what do? First of all, I want you to just realize the patterns, realize that this is actually a thing. It will be so for 99% of all the people listening to this video on some kind of level. Of course, some people, yeah, they'll be more into the people pleasing stuff and having to be perfect, and some at a lesser extent. But this will affect everyone. So you, first of all, make sure you get aware. Be aware. Just understand what is really happening. Okay, if you're saying yes to everyone apart from yourself, if you have your validation with the external stuff, if you think you need to be more perfect, if you're never satisfied with yourself, what you do, you always think that you need to do more or be better in order to be happy or reach your goal or be valuable or whatever it is that you think, this is a sure sign that you need to build your self-esteem. So first of all, be aware, realize what is happening, just observe. No judgment here, okay? This is human. We're all humans and we all do it. Second of all, start repeating to yourself, I am enough. I am enough. You can put inside your drawers, inside your fridge, wherever you look every day on a daily basis, put a little stick-it note saying, I am enough. Because the more you tell yourself this, the more you'll actually start believing it. This is the first thing I want you to do in order to build your self-esteem and stop that really, really bad habit of pleasing people, putting all your value with the external stuff, thinking that you need to produce more, you need to be more perfect, you need to get more positive feedback, you need to look, but all that stuff, that's just crap. It's not true. It's not real. Your value comes from the inside. When you are you, when you are the real you, when you can be authentic, that is where you have your value. And when you stop hunting for external validation and you find it all on the inside, you suddenly don't have to do all that stuff. And you can suddenly take a break and feel okay about it. taking a break, just lying down, charging your own batteries is the best thing you can do. We all need it. We're not robots, we're humans. The thing is that if we don't think that we are valuable and enough, we'll be driven into being more productive. And your brain literally thinks that you will die if you take a break or you're lazy. Maybe you just lie down on the couch or read a book for an hour. How often do you actually just lie down and relax? One of my favorite things to do is to just lie down on the floor, legs up against the wall, and just charge. I go into charging mode. If it's 5 minutes or 30 minutes, doesn't matter. Every day I lie down, I take time off and do nothing. I have lots of open space in my calendar, and I didn't use to. My calendar was packed, it was full, and it was the only way I could feel safe and happy was with a full calendar. And obviously, it doesn't work in the long run. This is a sure thing that will burn you out. So, build your self esteem, start thinking about yourself differently, and know that taking a break is the most valuable thing you can do for yourself. Habit number 2 that drives everyone into burnout is dopamine addiction. Yeah, we are all addicted to dopamine, some to a greater extent than others, and it's this blindly it's we're blindly hunting dopamine, and this is really what is causing us to burn out. Because the thing about dopamine is a neuromodulator, and we also think about it as a happy hormone. Dopamine makes you feel so good, and the reason why your body is producing dopamine, like literally the reason why we have dopamine, is in order to give you motivation and drive and energy in order to reach your goal. Did you know that? So we're used to think about dopamine as something that is released when we hit our goals. And yeah, that's true to a certain extent, but there's not that much dopamine being released. It's just a little bit, and it's a really short burst of dopamine. So when you actually achieve a goal, there'll be some dopamine and then it will be over. And why doesn't your body continue to produce dopamine after you hit a goal? Well, it's actually quite logical. In nature, everything is about conserving energy and making sure that you'll survive and that your offspring will survive. So imagine your ancestor. Maybe your ancestors, they hunted for a couple of days in order to have all this dopamine while they're out hunting. It gives them energy, it helps them move, it keeps them motivated, it gives them drive so that they will actually follow through and find that meat and hunt whatever they're hunting. When they get it, there's a burst of dopamine. There's supposed to be a burst of dopamine, and then there's no more. And why isn't there anymore? Well, first of all, your body wants to save energy all the time. Like everything is geared towards saving energy. And why? Well, energy was a very limited resource 2 million years ago. Yeah, these days we can just go outside and get whatever we want of energy. We can go to the store, we can go to 7-Eleven, we can go wherever, we can buy food. It's so available. But if you look at our ancestors, energy was a scarce resource. So your body is fine-tuned towards always saving energy. Actually producing dopamine requires energy. So your body doesn't waste dopamine. It gives you the dopamine you need, and then it's over. There's a second reason. So imagine that, okay, you hunted for 2 days, you finally hunted whatever you were hunting for, you got the meat, super good feeling, all that dopamine. Imagine if that lasted for months. Would you be motivated to go out and hunt again? Maybe not. Yeah, you would be hungry, but hunger isn't the same as motivation. You would maybe just make a shortcut. So dopamine is really there to ensure that you're going out again, because the lack of dopamine is so uncomfortable that we go out hunting for more dopamine. It was so important for our survival that you would, build a better house or cave or find a better cave or whatever your ancestors were doing. Find a new partner or water or safety, food, whatever. And if you would get that dopamine. And if that dopamine would last for ages, then you wouldn't be motivated to go out again and do the same thing again. So that's why you have dopamine when you're heading towards a goal, exactly when you reach the goal. And after that, it's gone. And what happens? Because we haven't learned this, we don't learn this in school, right? They should teach us this in school. So we blindly follow our dopamine addiction. So we're all addicted to dopamine. Dopamine is our brain's hardest currency. We're suckers for dopamine. We're running after dopamine all the time. And when there's a dopamine deficiency, like after you've had all that nice dopamine and it's gone, you feel it's so uncomfortable. It's like, ooh, you don't want to be here. And you know what your brain always does? It tries to move you away from whatever is uncomfortable towards where there is comfort. This was super important 2 million years ago when there was a lack of resources, right? Now we have so much energy, so many resources. There's so much. We don't need that drive towards always more. And you're also programmed to think that there's never enough and that you need to get more. Like you're programmed to know that you don't have enough of whatever you need and that you need to go out there and get more of it. And guess what? With this programming and the dopamine addiction, you're going to keep running and running and running until you realize what is happening, realize the patterns, and you don't have to be a victim of these patterns. Whenever you realize what's happening, you recognize it and you start taking a break. And then you start realizing that, yeah, you can make another choice. You can do it differently. You don't have to run and you can actually be happy where you are and with what you're doing. If you start practicing gratitude, you'll be one big step closer to stopping that dopamine addiction. So, again, what do I want you to do? Be aware. Just be aware of your patterns. What you're doing, what is preventing you, what is holding you back, and how does this occur? How does it feel? And just what are your thoughts? What are your feelings? And observe, don't judge, and just, be with it. And then, second of all, start realizing when you have this feeling that you need to run and get more, and then notice that you actually don't have to. When you practice gratitude, you can be happy about being exactly where you are. And you have so much stuff in your life already. You don't really need more. So, the more gratitude you practice, the less dopamine you will need. The third habit that most people fall into is following your head instead of your heart. And what happens when you just follow your head, follow the expectations of society, of other people, instead of following your heart, instead of doing what is really right for you, what you really want to do, what is aligned with your values? What happens when you have a job or a career where or you're studying for some kind of degree that is not really aligned with who you truly are? This is going to create so much inner stress. And what happens when you have that inner negative stress over a period of time? Well, guess what? It's not going to be good for your health and you will most probably burn out. If you look at it the opposite way, if you choose a career that is aligned with your values, that is aligned with who you truly are, your authentic you will be filled with, yeah, it could be stressful. Like most careers are stressful, but there's a huge difference between the positive stress and the negative stress. So when you choose to live a life that is aligned with you, your values, your vision, who you truly are, you're going to have all those positive feelings. It's going to create a positive biochemistry. It's going to be healthy for you. And yeah, too much positive stress can also burn you out if you're not aware of the other things we talked about, the dopamine addiction and people pleasing and putting your values in all the external stuff. So yeah, you need to be aware of those things also. You can be driven, you can love your work, and you can still burn out, but there is a bigger chance that you'll burn out if you're doing something that you don't love, if you're doing something that you actually hate. Sometimes people have jobs that are, counter to their values, and in the long run, it doesn't work. I've had so many clients who I've worked with, they're like, oh, I feel like I'm burnt out and I don't understand what's happening. And then we go through their values and their work, and then they're like, oh wow, I understand why I was burnt out, because what I'm doing at work is not aligned with my values, and I'm facing that every day, and it's going to create so much negative stress. So again, I want you to ask yourself, what is it that you truly desire? What is it that you truly want? If there were no limits, if money wasn't an issue, if you knew you couldn't fail, if you could do whatever you wanted to, what would you fill your life with? Ask yourself that. You might not get an answer immediately. It will come to you at some point. And then the next task is, how can you manage your life to make sure it is more aligned with your values? And remember, we are all human. We're all driven by these habits. So, first thing, be aware. Second, know that change takes time. It's not done overnight. And third, be kind to yourself. Don't judge. And number four, know that you are enough.